Welcome to Outdoorsy, the podcast where we are redefining what the word means itself and reclaiming it for everybody. I'm your host, Madeline. I am so excited to be joined by a guest whose mission is to inspire you to explore no matter what your size. Ilsa is a fat, positive hiker, traveler who's ventured all over the world. She just got back from like a crazy adventure all over Europe. Through their content, Ilsa shares experiences as a solo traveler, outdoor enthusiast, and all of this from the perspective of someone who's fat, someone who's queer, challenging the norms of an industry where people like them are often underrepresented. Her passion for empowering others to really see themselves in the outdoors, whether it's through hiking, travel, adventure, is just refreshing and honestly necessary. So I'm excited to dive into their experience of just fitting into the outdoorsy community despite the lack of representation in the media, advertising, and outdoor gear for people of all sizes. Also, I'm so excited to have you just share your story and inspire other people to embrace the outdoors. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm pumped to be here, excited to dive into these conversations.
Yay! I am excited to have you on too. Before we get into like the meat and potatoes of this, I do have a question that is not on the list that I sent you beforehand. Just to like set the tone for today's episode. I was interviewing somebody else who knows you, and they told me to ask you about this. Can you tell me about your feelings about the Bee Movie?
Bee Movie is a cinematic masterpiece. I love it so much, and I saw it in theaters, and then I never thought about it again until I needed a Halloween costume in college, and I was like, I'm gonna be a bee. And then I realized when I was like, of course, in college, looking up what's the perfect Instagram caption for this, I realized it was the same week that the Bee Movie had been released. So then it became my entire personality. I have a bee tattoo for the Bee Movie. It's incredible. I love it.
Oh my God, it's so amazing. I love it. I'm just like delighted to hear this story.
Yeah, it really is just such a good movie. And I mean, I feel like there's so many good points this movie makes. Like, yeah, it's a fun kids movie, but it also shows the importance of bees. And like, I love bees. I obviously love the outdoors and the environment. So I feel like some could say that the Bee Movie is a very important movie to show our children and show the kids of the world that bees are important and bees help everything stay how it is. Because without bees, we're not going to have plants, we're not going to have flowers, we're not going to have grass. It's a very important movie.
It's an important, really defining film of our generation. So thank you for bringing awareness.
It's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Thank you. I was talking to my sister-in-law about this the other day because we were at a concert, and the artist Amelia Day, she was like, I'm gonna play something that's a little bit more jazz inspired, and then she was like, you like jazz? And my sister-in-law was like, what? Like, why did she say it like that? And I was like, do you not know?
Yeah, the Bee Movie.
It's the most important film of our time.
And it really is, like, top 5 favorite films of mine. Like, it's just so iconic.
Incredible. We'll just have to have like a whole bonus episode where we're just dissecting the Bee Movie and talking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, enough about Bee Movie. I'm sorry for everybody who's listening at home and who's like, what is this podcast?
What are we tuning into right now?
Yeah. They're like, wait, did I put on the right thing? Let's get back into the real topic of today, which is all about defining outdoorsy. So let's jump into that and tell me, how do you personally define the term outdoorsy?
I feel like when I instantly think of the term outdoorsy, like, I think short and sweet, someone who loves to be outside in any capacity, no matter what that looks like for them. It could be like you doing a huge through hike, backpacking trip. It could be you traveling to another country and going on a hike there. It could be you camping. It could be you walking in your neighborhood. It could be you just going hammocking somewhere. Like, I think outdoorsy it's anything. It's anything you can do to be outside. And I don't think there's one way to be outdoorsy. And I think that's something that both of us obviously share, that love and passion of showing that it's not just one thing you can do, that being outdoorsy can look different for every single person. I think that's the beauty of it, that it can be tailored to each person. And I think that's really special.
Cannot agree more. I want to dive into kind of learning more about your story and your journey. But before we do that, why do you think that the term outdoorsy has become something that is maybe misunderstood or people are feeling like they can't identify with, even though, like what you just said, there's so many of us that don't think that it's an exclusionary term, don't think of this elitist definition of it, but so many people still feel that way. Like, why do you think that is?
My first thought honestly is thinking like I grew up in like with like social media. Like as social media was booming, like I was growing up with it. I remember like in high school, like Instagram like becoming a big thing. And I think social media plays such a huge role because we're targeting these certain people who say like, oh, I'm outdoorsy. And then we just see maybe the same people who all look the same or are all doing the same thing. So then each of us are fighting our own imposter syndrome of, are we outdoorsy enough? Are we doing enough to be considered outdoorsy? Is me going and walking in my neighborhood where there's lots of greenery and trees, like, is that outdoorsy when people are out here doing 10+ mile hikes or maybe doing through hikes? And so I think social media plays such a huge role in that. And I think it's that like imposter syndrome, comparing, all of that, that really just does not help because like we said, like outdoorsy does look different for everyone. But it's hard when on social media, especially as social media has continued booming and continued getting bigger, and we're just seeing these big platforms and these people who are saying, oh, I'm outdoorsy, and then everyone's like, oh, that's what outdoorsy is, and that's how you define it, and that's what it must be, and which is why I think it's so great that we're seeing more and more smaller creators now popping out showing that outdoorsy can look different and outdoorsy can be for everyone. And I think that's really important that we're kind of changing that narrative on social media of like, we're always going to have those big platforms and big people, but I think having more and more smaller creators sharing their experiences and sharing what they do to be outdoorsy, because I always say if it gets on the feed of one person, it can change that one person's life, and then they have a conversation and it's a ripple effect. And I think that's really special.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. I think that growing up with social media, and I say growing up, I didn't even really have social media until I was like, this is going to age me, but like really into like high school and college. Like that was really like when it became more prevalent. But you get in this comparison game too, because you're everything that you then are wanting to post is for validation of other people. And if the only other things you see being posted are people who look a certain way, dress a certain way, are doing a certain activity, and then you're like, well, I don't look like that, I'm not dressed like that, and I'm not doing that activity, obviously I'm not valid enough, or like it's not correct, you don't want to post it. And so much of what we do, we're like, well, I'm doing it for the gram or like whatever it is, but like it's not always the case, I know, for everybody, but I think it definitely plays this like weird role, this comparison game that we play with ourselves, even when nobody else is really paying that much attention to us. We still kind
Yeah.
of do it to ourselves. Like you said, this imposter syndrome that we place on ourselves because of what we see.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of times we see these like people online who are popping out with the name brand gear and the really expensive things. And that not everyone can do that. And you don't need the expensive gear to be outdoorsy. And I think that's something that I've even struggled with, like in my like journey of getting outdoors more, is that, well, I don't have like the best things. I don't have like this. I remember buying like my first pair of like hiking boots and I was so excited because I'm like, oh my God, I have Merrell hiking boots. They're my absolute favorite. I love them to death. And like, I was so excited about it. And like, I just remember being like, oh my gosh, like, this is so fun. Like, I now have like a name brand piece. And like, you don't even need a name brand piece. Like, I tell people all the time, like, you just need like a pair of sneakers, comfortable walking shoes, literally anything to just go outside if you're going to go walking. And if you're not, throw on Crocs. I love Crocs. I'll go out and go camping in Crocs all day long. Like, you don't need the expensive gear like we're sometimes told on social media that you need. And I think part of it's just our society of like everything we consume of wanting to spend money, but also it doesn't help. We're seeing outdoors creators being like, oh, well, I have like this really expensive tent. Like, you can go buy a tent from Walmart. A tent's a tent. It's gonna work.
Yeah, it's the same thing with clothing too. Like I feel like I wore the same pair of Nike running shorts that I had in high school that I like continued to force myself into, even though I was like 20 pounds heavier in college. Like, but I was like, well, this is all I can afford. I don't want to like buy new shorts. So I'm going to like keep wearing these. And then then we started seeing on social media everybody the cute matching sets, and I was like, oh my God, I obviously am doing something wrong because I only have these like ratty old running shorts that I have like cherished. And it's the bottom line is like, no, if those shorts are allowing you to like get outdoors, it's fine. Like you don't need to have the thing. I mean, obviously you want to be comfortable. You don't want to be like being like squeezing yourself into shorts that don't fit. But you don't need to be buying brand new stuff to be like matching unless you want to. Because like I love a matching set. I love to look cute in the outdoors. Like that brings me joy and I like that. But like I don't feel like I need to do that anymore. It's not because I'm doing comparison game anymore. It's just because it's my own personal style, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that, yeah, that's so important. I think we're finally seeing that like shift of as long as you're comfortable and whatever that looks like for you, because it looks different for every single person. As long as you're comfortable, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. So I feel like we're like already off to the races talking about all this stuff, but I want to back up a quick second and hear about your journey. Like, you travel, you get outdoors, you're on the go a lot. Like, tell us about how you got to this point. Did you grow up going hiking? Did you grow up traveling? Like, how did you come to be to where you are today?
So growing up, I have older siblings. And so my older sister is 10 years older than me, and she played travel softball. And then when I got old enough, I started playing travel softball. And so I think with both of us playing travel sports, like growing up, I was always drawn to like my sister's tournaments, her weekend tournaments. I grew up in Illinois, and so we would always kind of travel around the Midwest. And I know her team played in Florida one time, played in Colorado, and we kind of turned it into a family trip. And so then when I started playing travel softball, again, traveling kind of in the Midwest mainly, but that was something like my parents, like we always kind of turned it into a trip of like, well, we're going for a tournament, but like we'll go a day early, stay a day late to just see the area. And so I think just little things like that really just started to spark my interest of like, oh, the world's bigger than my small town with 1,000 people that I grew up in. And so definitely like travel sports helped that. And then I think just going to college, my majors were anthropology and religious studies. So just really focusing on studying other cultures, other people, just really fascinated me. And I feel like it really skyrocketed my want to travel and see more since I hadn't really traveled much growing up besides just like in the Midwest, which was still fun. I visited a lot of random little cities I'll probably never be back in, but I have like fun memories from it. But then I took my first trip internationally in 2018. I went to Italy and Greece, and I did that by myself, but I joined like a group, and so it was the perfect like. I went by myself. I was able to meet people, and that just skyrocketed like my love of traveling and just getting out in the outdoors and seeing more, and that there's so much more than just like what I know. But then I really didn't start hiking until 2020. So I feel like 2018, my first time going abroad, and then I continued to go abroad like 2019. I went abroad in 2020, right before everything happened. I did a trip in January, so I really got it in. And so didn't really start hiking until 2020. So I was working, it was my senior year of college, so everything went online, and I was an essential worker because I was working at Target. And so I still was working the long hours, but I was just getting so sick of being inside every single day because I would either be in my apartment doing homework or I would be at work. And then I couldn't really do anything else. And my college town is kind of surrounded by a few Wisconsin state parks. And so one day I was like, to my roommates, I'm like, let's just go outside. I need to get out. And we went, and it was so much fun. And something just clicked for me. Like, I don't know why before that I never had ever been like, oh, I'm just gonna like go on a hike. I'm like, I had hiked before, but that time something just clicked. And then it became my perfect escape in that time to just, if I had a day off, I would be, okay, where can I go on a hike today? And it just started really simple, doing really simple, easy hikes because I was not a big hiker. And I had that mentality of like, oh, well, like, I'm plus size and I don't do this much, so I don't really know what I'm doing. So I'm just going to kind of find some easier hikes to do. And then it kind of just kept building. And then end of 2020, when things kind of started opening up, I did a huge solo road trip in the US, and I hit a ton of national parks. I went through North Dakota, I did Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Idaho. Like I hit a ton of